The net result of our profligate use of detentions without legal representation has been to make us less safe. It hasn't uncovered any terrorists.
The only way to find the real terrorists is through the hard job of investigative law enforcement, investigating individual suspicious behavior that pertains to a person who's doing something wrong, as opposed to attacking an entire segment of the population.
The Constitution is really quite clear. In parts of the Constitution, the rights and privileges are reserved only for American citizens, like the right to vote. But elsewhere in the Constitution, the Founding Fathers were equally explicit. No person shall be denied life, liberty, or property without due process of law. They did not say no citizen. They said no person.
February 22nd, I got a phone call about 7 o'clock in the morning from my uncle saying that about 12 to 15 federal agents just came into my parents' house, picked up my mom, my dad, and my sister.
It was a terrible day. I will not forget this day in all my life, me or my family.
Around 5:30 in the morning, I heard a hard knock on the door.
We wake up, what's going on? What's wrong?
I keep telling my husband, don't open. We don't know who they are. But he was already there.
I opened the door for them, and suddenly they run everywhere, shouting.
I thought our house was getting broken into, or maybe being robbed.
You could hear officers running around, clear, 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 like something you see on TV.
With their guns pointed out, they pulled the blanket off of me and said, get up into the living room now.
I was scared.
They had the flashlight in my eye.
Who are they?
I didn't know what they were doing. I don't know why.
He pulled his gun and he put it right in the middle of my forehead.
Then I just looked over to my mom on the bed.
Right away, there is one man ordered me to get up. I said, okay, go away. I need to go put my scarf on. He said, you need to get up right now. I said, you need to go out of my room so I can cover myself so I can get up. He won't let me.
One, he said, I'm from FBI, and another said, I'm from the INS.
And then when they took us outside, they handcuffed my dad.
They handcuffed me in front of my children, me and my wife and my daughters.
Just put us in the car and drive us to the INS detention.
We were living legally, above the ground, openly in this country. We were obeying the law.
But that didn't seem to matter. Safu Hamoui, his wife Hanan, and 19-year-old daughter Nadine were taken here, to the Seattle INS Detention Center. It was a place that reminded them of the oppression they thought they had left behind. Safu Hamoui had been a pilot in the Syrian Air Force when bad weather forced him to make an emergency landing. Rather than receive any kind of praise, he was accused of attempting to assassinate his passengers, which included the Syrian vice president. He fled Syria and applied for political asylum in the United States. He settled with his family in Seattle, and he opened the area's first Middle Eastern grocery store. For 10 years, he and his family lived peacefully until his application for asylum was denied due to the incompetence of his lawyer. He was ordered deported, but he remained in the U.S. while awaiting the outcome of his appeal. The FBI cleared Safu 4 days after he was arrested, yet the Hamouis were still kept in prison.
I just couldn't understand how they can do something like that. I know my dad fought so hard to come to the country for freedom, and just to be able to live without, fear of prosecution because of his religion or because of his job or because of who he is. And then, 10 years later, we find out that, the country that we came here to save us is actually doing the same to us.
Why? Why? Because I'm Arabic? Because I'm wearing my scarf? Because I'm proud of my religion? My religion is so beautiful. Not being my enemy and torture me when I thought I'm in freedom country. I can keep my religion, I can practice my religion, I can,
you're in like 4-wall room and it's very small, and you're in there with your mom and she's sick, and we should have never been in jail, let alone a solitary room.
10 months, just imagine 10 months, day by day.
Media attention helped bring about the release of Nadine and her mother.
I had to hold my mom, faint more than 11 times right in front of my face.
Safu was let out 1 month later because the INS had finally admitted he was not a flight risk.
Freedom, that's what I am here for. I came for this country for the freedom. And I fight for the freedom. And I am here for the freedom.
His daughter Nadine, her own memories all too apparent, rushed to embrace him. The Hamoui's youngest daughter arrived home from school to find her father there. The fate of the Hamoui family still hangs in the balance. They may yet be deported.
The American people need to know what happened in the name of safety, in the name of fighting this war on terrorism. We lost our civil liberties over it. We lost our freedom. And that's what the terrorists want. You know, they wanted us to fall apart. They wanted us not to become united. They wanted us to separate and turn against each other. And, I think they might have succeeded.
The government has argued that rounding up and detaining people like the Hamouis is a vital step in the war against terror. But top counterterrorism officials say such policies have destroyed our relationship with the very communities that could warn law enforcement about an impending terrorist attack.
The first line of defense against international terrorism is information. It's intelligence. It means having sources within communities. What we were doing by all of these roundups is alienating those communities and making them more distrustful of law enforcement, less inclined to be cooperative, less inclined to volunteer and to come forward when they have information that would be of material value to law enforcement. It was the wrong way to go around it. We were targeting communities from which there was no known terrorism, and yet we were doing it on the basis of stereotypes. It isn't going to stop the next 9/11.
Ashcroft's directive that local police enforce immigration law also means that if an immigrant witnesses a crime, they will now be afraid to come forward, fearing that they may be deported or even locked up indefinitely. That leaves criminals to run free on the streets, which is exactly why police departments in Los Angeles and Seattle have policies not to enforce immigration law.
To focus on whole groups of individuals, whole classes of individuals who've done nothing more than be born in the wrong country or worship the wrong God is poor law enforcement that makes us less safe.
But the Justice Department has ignored the recommendations of counterterrorism experts. Instead, they initiated a sweep of immigrants who worked at the nation's airports with the idea that such mass arrests would prevent another hijacking.
And many of the people who rounded up, the majority, were Latinos. They had nothing to do with terrorism. No terrorists were caught. Somehow the government felt like the country would feel better if we rounded up people serving pizza and cleaning in the airports.
And mass deportations were secretly begun.
What the federal government did is it commissioned private commercial airliner jets from different airlines, and it had these nighttime airlift deportations. Nobody here would be notified. People would have vanished. Their families wouldn't have been able to trace them. We rounded up people that were seeking political asylum in this country. We sent them back to the place they were running from.
Reports began to filter back that people had been tortured in Syria, disappeared in Egypt, and murdered in Pakistan.
We put all these people in terrible situations all around the world. And it's, the enormity of that every once in a while overwhelms me. It's like, this can't be the country that I grew up in.
The way America had treated the detainees was so bad that the Justice Department's Inspector General found it necessary to issue a report condemning what had occurred.
This was not a report of outside critics. This was a report done by the Inspector General of the Justice Department itself, criticizing the haphazard and the indiscriminate manner in which the rights of immigrants were trampled upon in the aftermath of 9/11.
Within a day or two afterwards, Attorney General John Ashcroft got on the news and said, well, we do it the same way all over again.
He insisted that he had done nothing wrong, that he had no regrets, that he would do it all over again.
This is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States that's saying, well, yes, we'd redo all of these unconstitutional policies all over again. And we're just floored, because there's another department in our government that is basically saying this is horrendous and it can't happen. And here's our Attorney General saying, I don't care.